Shri Jagannatho Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Cheto Darparnamarjanam Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavachandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandambudhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedanscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tagmungha Devamatma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukchurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. The Divine Souls will have a couple minutes of Nam Sankirtan, and after that I'll be answering some questions from our YouTube channel. Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe
Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe
Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Govinda
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद गोविंद राधे
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की Radhe Radhe everyone. Today's timing for our Sunday Satsang is adjusted for our Sadhana Shivir, which is going on. We we'll be ending at 12 instead of 12:30 like we normally do. So we'll end at 12 and then have the Arti right after that. Today's session is a Q&A with our YouTube watchers. So we always broadcast this Sunday Satsang live and invite our viewers to send in their questions. And we got a few today, so I'm going to be... This one question that I received is quite a long one. It's very heartfelt, and actually there are quite a few questions in this one question. So that's what I'm going to start with. This is obviously a very important issue for the person who sent this in. So I'll go through her message and try my best to answer. So this person writes in that during COVID, during this time, they lost someone very close to them. So related to this, there are many questions coming up for them. One of them is about birth and death. Is it destined? Because she's asking, you know, if we had been able to get him in a better hospital, would he have survived? She's feeling guilt about this kind of thing, dwelling upon that, what if, what if, what if. So that's the first question about the time of death. Hani labh jivan marana yasha apayasha vidhihat. The time of death is one of the things that is destined. Not everything is destined, but certain things are absolutely fixed. They cannot be changed by any means. We perform karma in our previous lifetimes, and then that is all saved up, kept track of by God Himself. That karma that we do is called kriyaman karma. It's kept as sanchit karma after we finish our life. All that karma from that life is stored as sanchit karma, and then in each life we're given some prarabdha karma to experience. Prarabdha means now we're getting the consequences of the past karma that we did. In this life we also have the ability to perform new kriyaman karma. We have free will to perform new actions. Nobody is controlling our thinking or our speaking or our physical movements of our body. God isn't controlling it, and our destiny isn't controlling it. Only we are controlling it with our free will. Yet there are certain things that are controlled by destiny. One of them is the situation into which we're born. Who are our parents? Who are our siblings? What country or religion are we born into? Are we born into a poor family, a rich family, a devotional family, a worldly family? All of that is the outcome of what we did in our previous life. So our birth is destined. Even our DNA, you can go to that level. What parents did we get? From them we got our DNA, which of course there are so many different possible combinations, but how did we get this exact combination? That's also your destiny. Then you're born into this life, and what do you do with your DNA? What do you do with the brain you got, right? Your mind comes with you. The mind functions through the brain. Is your brain considered intelligent or a little slower or what? But what do you do with it, right? Someone could work very hard and surpass someone who has a naturally intelligent brain. And the intelligent person might not work hard and doesn't achieve as much as they could have. Along the way, we have certain opportunities and obstacles that happen to us. That's also part of our destiny. But ultimately, what we do, what we achieve, what we become, it's not destined. It's somewhat shaped by the obstacles and opportunities that are presented to us in our life. But ultimately, we're the ones who can overcome obstacles. We're the ones who can be determined enough to accomplish something. But whenever the time of death comes, that is fixed. The exact moment of death is fixed. So whether someone commits suicide, someone dies of COVID, someone dies in an accident, however someone may die, that moment was fixed at the time they were born. They were already moving towards that point in time. We feel a sense of loss when we lose someone. Now, when someone reaches out like this who's obviously in pain, our desire would be to comfort them. But the truth is not always comforting in the way that we want immediately, right? A person may want to hear certain things like, oh, you'll see them after you die. They're waiting for you. That kind of thing would be more comforting immediately, right? But there's even deeper comfort and true comfort in the philosophical facts. And the fact is, our soul is eternal. And we have all died infinite times. We've lived infinite lives. Radhe Radhe. You, pay attention. We've all died infinite times. We've lived infinite lifetimes. So dying is nothing new and dying is nothing dangerous. No matter how we die, our body has to die. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur. Our body was born, so it's going to die. It has to. Whatever was born must die, Gita says. But our soul is not killed by physical death. Ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Sit separately. Sit separately, you two. One move. Isha, move. The soul is not killed by physical death. We have died unlimited physical deaths. And every life we finish and then we start another life. So the soul, it's just a change of scenery. It's just a change of our outer shell. But the soul, along with the mind, the subtle mind that carries all of its memories with it, goes and takes another body. And that happens right after we die. I mean, we may go to Swarg if we did a lot of good actions. We may go to Narak if we did a lot of bad actions. We may be born in any species, lower species. We could be born as human again. So there are different options of where the soul goes. The soul can be transferred anywhere. Another another question sent by another person was, can the soul be born in other Brahmans? So our scriptures say, Sankhya chet rajasamasti na vishwanang kadachana. Even if you could count every speck of dust on this earth, you still couldn't count the number of Brahman in existence in this universe. Sa ek eveshwaraha narayano khila brahmandadhipati rekonshaha. Radhikopanishad says that Mahavishnu, who is Ansh of Shri Krishna, he is the Lord of uncountable Brahmand, unlimited, Akhila Brahmand, unlimited number of Brahmand. And there are souls just like us living in each and every Brahmand. Now these are not parallel universes. There's not another one of you living on earth number 2 and another one of you on earth number 3. There are infinite souls that exist, so there have to be infinite Brahman to accommodate all the infinite souls. They can't all be accommodated on one earth planet. So that other person's question, the answer is yes. You can be born in other Brahmans. Certainly when this Brahman finishes, after 311 trillion years, which is the total lifespan of our Brahman, we're halfway done that. So another 155.5 trillion years to go, this earth planet will finish. Then where will we go if we're not God realized? We'll go and be born in some other Brahman. So you see, when you have this larger perspective, our soul never began, it will never end. It came into this life. We've had infinite births previously, infinite bodies, infinite husbands, infinite wives, infinite kids, infinite parents in every life. So this may not be immediately comforting to a person who's going through what this person obviously is. But this is the philosophy of Sanatana Dharma. This is the philosophy of our Ved. And long term, in the long term, understanding this will give a deeper comfort. Understanding that I'm eternal. Your spouse is eternal. The one who passed away is eternal. They existed before you were together. They will exist long after your relationship finished. The only true eternal relationship is with God. Now, the real pain we feel is that we seek happiness from the people that we're with in this life. We really want happiness because that's our nature, and we really believe my husband will give me happiness, my wife will give me happiness, my kids will give me happiness. We truly believe that. So of course, when we lose that person, we have lost that source of happiness. At least that's what we believed, that we'll get happiness from that person. The fact is, nobody has perfect happiness until they get God realized, and only God is the ultimate source of perfect happiness. So only by attaining God can you get perfect happiness, which is ultimately comforting. The real pain is Jehite kachu nij swarath hoi, ta par mamata karai sab koi. Tulsidas Ji says, we get attached wherever we feel that our self-interest is being fulfilled. And our self-interest means our happiness. So wherever we believe I'm getting happiness or I will get happiness from this place or this person, we get attached. And then when we lose that person, then we feel that sense of loss. We created the attachment by thinking that we'll get happiness from that person. So we also created our own experience of pain. People think, why is God giving me this pain? No, that person was destined to be on earth for that amount of time. You got your mind attached to them thinking they are my happiness. So of course when they leave, you'll feel that deep sense of loss. To whatever extent we have believed that, to the same extent we will feel that sense of loss, that grief. The only way to truly overcome that is replace it with Krishna. Krishna is your eternal husband. He's been with you in every life and he'll be with you forever. Your relationship with him will never be broken. But we've never acknowledged it. We've never looked to him for happiness and believed that he will give us happiness. So this person's question is about this sense of grief and loss because someone very close to them passed on. But the first point is, you couldn't have saved them. Even if you put them in the best hospital with the best doctors, every person goes at the appointed time. That doesn't mean you don't treat a person when they get ill. You can affect your quality. You can't change your time of death, but you can affect your quality of life between now and death. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to get the best care when you're sick, but you don't give in to the sense of guilt when somebody near you dies and you think, oh, I should have got them better care. They would still be alive today. My kids would still have a father today. No, they were destined to go at that time. Then the next question is, why does God take that person at that time? That's also according to their destiny. And your destiny. If the wife's husband passed away, that was also part of your destiny, that your husband would only stay with you for that long. And it was also part of your kids' destiny, that they would have a father for this many years. Now, before you say, oh, that's probably the result of some bad action you did in a past life, no, dying young is not a punishment. Everybody has to die. Perhaps dying young is a good thing. Growing old is the difficult thing, right? We could all agree on that, anyone over the age of 20. So we shouldn't just assume that somebody was taken early, so that's some kind of punishment from God. And although, sure, in the broad scheme of things, statistically speaking, it's better for kids to have both of their parents, but how do you know what will come out of that for those kids? I remember the very first time I was introduced to non-Western thinking, you could say, quote-unquote, Eastern philosophy, which is really rooted in Hindu philosophy. But in my 11th grade English class, our teacher had been to India, and he had heard some stories. So there's one simple story he told about not being able to judge whether something is good or bad. A farmer's total crop had been wiped out. He wasn't able to harvest anything this year. So his neighbor came to him and said, oh, I'm so sorry. This is such a terrible thing. And the farmer said, no, it's too soon to tell. Whether it's terrible or not, it's too soon to tell. Who knows what will come out of that? That will lead to the next thing, which will lead to the next thing and the next thing. It's too soon to tell. So that's always the answer. It's too soon to tell. Why do we decide it's bad? Something amazing could come out of it. Even the most terrible things shape us in different ways, our experiences. So we shouldn't assume that it's a punishment from God. A person leaves the earth at the time they're destined to leave. The next question, I love my husband very much. Will I meet him after my death? Or would my husband have taken his next birth? Yes, your husband would have already taken the next birth. And even if you both died at the same time and met in the next life, you wouldn't remember each other. You are reborn in the field of your attachments. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitrivrata bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhyajinopimam. Gita says, wherever you attach your mind, that is where you'll be reborn in your next life. If you're attached to the Devtas in Swarg, you'll go to Swarg. If you're attached to rajas people and things of this world, you'll be reborn in this world. If you're attached to negative things, tamas things, you'll go to Narak. If you're attached to Krishna, you'll go to Krishna. He is our ultimate goal, and He is the ultimate source of true happiness, and He is always ours. That is our ultimate comfort, that Krishna is ours and He's waiting for us. We can have perfect love with Him. We never have to leave Him, never have to say goodbye. That's the ultimate comfort. But in the next life, if you're reborn amongst your attachments, perhaps the one who passed away early is reborn in the same family. As a child, as a grandchild, could be in any species, but nearby. These are all the possibilities. But even if you both died together and are reborn maybe as brother and sister in your next life, you won't remember. The memories are there in our mind, buried deep. We don't have access to them with our conscious mind. So you would be meeting for the first time again in your next life, which is actually taking us more towards God. If we could remember each and every person from life to life and then restart, take those relationships up again in our next life, we would just keep pursuing that. The fact that we don't get to continue those relationships, we don't get to take our wealth with us, that makes us think that my death is coming imminently. And when I go, I'll go empty-handed. I don't even bring this body, and I don't get to continue any of the relationships I have in this life. I'll start all new relationships, except my relationship with Krishna carries over. So that gives us more impetus to go towards Shri Krishna, because we want something permanent, everlasting. Now finally, she's asking, does the soul have a form? Soul has a form when it's in a body. But soul itself is nirakar. Soul itself is formless. So that's why our looks keep changing from life to life. The last question in this line is about, because it was during coronavirus time, the final rituals were not able to be performed properly according to Vedas. So what will happen to him? What can we do to give peace to his Atma? Now, mainly a person goes on, and what happens to them after leaving their body, where they're reborn, what happens to them in their next life, that's all according to their karma, not according to what you do after they die. What you do after they die, Shraddh, etc., those are good Vedic karma. It's punya that you're accumulating by performing all of those ritual actions. If it is done, let's say someone is in the spirit world, they haven't gone on to their next birth, and then you do these rituals, they may get some temporary benefit from that. Kripalu Maharaj says it's like if a person is hungry and you feed them a meal, they feel okay for a couple hours, right? So doing Shraddh is something like that. It's very difficult to perform Shraddh as prescribed in the Vedas. During Kali Yuga, it's almost impossible. So what we should focus on is chanting God's name. If you want to, if by chance someone who passed on hasn't gone on to their next birth, and by chance if they're in the spirit world, the best way you can help them is chant Krishna name, chant Radhe name. They'll get peace from that until they go on to their next birth. If you sincerely do devotion, attaching your mind to Radha Krishna, that's the best way to help those around you. So that answers this long issue that was sent to us. So thank you for sending in that question. It brought up many very relevant topics that everybody's been dealing with over the last couple of years. So in relation to that, does anyone here have any follow-up question? I have a couple more YouTube questions here, but if there's anything anybody wanted to ask, just raise your hand and Rishi will bring the mic so you can ask.
On the topic of destiny, Maharaj mentions that the amount of money that we make in this lifetime is also destined, and that's all often dictated by the amount of charity you did in your past life. So why is it that we see so many people in the world who are obviously very successful and make a lot of money, which obviously probably means that they, did charity in the past lives, but they don't do any charity in this life at all, and they don't even have a desire to do any charity in this life?
It's interesting, right, that if they gave charity in their last life, you'd think they would have that pravritti in this life of being generous. Maharaji says it's greatly, there are other factors. So the biggest factor influencing how much money a person gets is how much charity they did in their past life. But there are other factors, like how hard you work. So, but that's has a smaller effect, you can say. It's not 100% destined how much money you'll have. There may be a cap on it based on how much charity you gave, but you might not reach that limit if you don't work hard, that kind of thing. Now, a person, I think it really depends on the association they have. Being charitable is one thing, but we're deeply affected by the people that we're surrounded by. So if we're not taught to give charity, if we're not taught to be charitable, I don't think that quality really comes out of us. So a person may have had that association in their last life and they did a lot of charity, and in this life they had that seed, maybe that was part of that generosity was there in their personality, but it just never fructified as a sharing of wealth type of thing. So then at that point, our scriptures say if you have wealth and you don't use it for charity, then you won't get it in your next life. Any other questions? Yes, in the back. Couple of questions.
So you said the soul doesn't have a form. I know that Maharaji mentions like the layers, like Sukshma Sharir. Could you explain what that is?
Yes. So the soul is pure Satchit Anand. Should we use the other mic? Is that one having a problem? So the soul is pure Satchit Anand and is a ansh of Bhagwan. And there are 3 material layers covering the soul. The least subtle is the physical body. That's called sthul sharir. Sthul, in English, there's not a proper word for it other than the word gross, which is a funny word, right? So our gross material body, I guess it fits, actually. So our sthul sharir, then the next more subtle layer is called our sukshma sharir, our subtle body. And the subtle body is made up of basically your mind. That's the simplest way to put it. But really, it's more than just your mind, because there are subtle parts of our personality that go with us. So there's actually, yes, you have mind, which is man, the emotional mind, buddhi, the intellectual mind, and ahankar, the self-awareness. These are 3 facets of our mind. But then there's also our 5 subtle senses. So the sense of sight that works through our eyes when we're physically conscious also works in our dream when our eyes aren't working, right? We see our dream. So that subtle sense of sight is also embedded in the mind. Same with our other senses of perception. That's called Jnanendriya. Then there are 5 senses of action called Karmendriya. So the ability to grasp is actually a subtle sense. The ability to move. So the ability to grasp, it functions through the hands. The ability to move functions through the feet. The ability to vocalize or communicate functions through the voice. In this way, we have 5 senses of action. Those subtle senses are also embedded in the mind. And then we have 5 prana, 5 different types of life energy that move in a circuit in our body. So our prana, our 5 senses of action, 5 senses of perception, and 3 facets of our mind, those 18 things make up the subtle body. So you have sthul sharir, then you have sukshma sharir, and finally the most subtle thing is the karan sharir. Karan sharir is all your past karma. All your past actions, you can say your sanskars. All of that is stored in a very subtle way, and of course that when it fructifies, it becomes your destiny in this life. Those sanskars also reflect into your conscious mind and affect your moods in this life. So that is there, that's the karan sharir or causal body. Every thought you have goes into your karan sharir eventually, and then they come back out into your subtle body, into your mind. So when you die, your sthul sharir is left, but the karan sharir and sukshma sharir goes with the soul to the next life. Just the sthul sharir changes. So really, you are fully intact from life to life. Because your mind, all your past karma, all your memories, all the good and bad qualities of your personality, your subtle senses, your prana, all of that goes from life to life. And even during Mahapralay, the subtle mind is also now dissolved. The subtle body is dissolved, but the karan sharir remains even during Mahapralay. And then after, when Srishti happens again, the subtle body is again activated, and then you're given birth in another physical body. But the soul is none of those things. The soul is not the physical body, the soul is not the subtle body or mind, and the soul is not the karan sharir either. So you are beyond all of those things. Yes, in the back. Keshav, yeah.
What is the spirit world?
The spirit, so you know Swarg and Narak, right? You understand those? So we generally talk of 3 material areas. The Mrityulok, the earth where we are. Swarg, which is a place in Maya where you go to get rewards for good actions. Narak, a place you go to get punishment for bad actions. Both are temporary. You always come back here. This is where you perform the actions when you're born as a human. The spirit world is right here. Certain souls, if because of maybe attachment, they're unable to go on for their next birth. They don't go to Swarg, they don't go to Narak, nor are they reborn on this earth. So they're kept temporarily as a spirit. So a spirit just has their subtle body, but they look like they did when they were alive. And they also retain their memories of their most recent birth while they're in the spirit world. So those spirits are not something we have to worry about. It's just another place the soul can go in between births, and eventually that soul moves on and takes another birth. Here in the very front.
Radhe Radhe Bhaiya.
Radhe Radhe.
Bhaiya, yesterday we were singing a bhajan. Pyari 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 hai, pursane wari hai.
Oh, she's going to test me. Let's see.
There was the word girl, gar dulri wali hai, girl dulri wali.
Dullari means the chain is doubled. So if you wear a chain like this, that's dullari. If you do it 3 times, that's tillari. Yeah, I passed. So Radharani wears dullari and tillari.
Bhaiya, there was also a reference of some Brahmar Geet from Bhagavatam in one of the chants yesterday. So what is that Brahmar Geet?
You know how we hear about Radharani is Mahabhav, and Mahabhav has different levels. So there's one level which is only, Maharaji tells about the Madanakya Mahabhav, Radharani's reserved seat. Even Krishna doesn't access or can't comprehend the depth of that ras. So actually, before even that Madanakya Mahabhav, there's something called Divyonmad. And there's 10 states of Radharani's Divyonmad. They're ecstatic states of Radha's Mahabhav. So they've been described in Ujjwal Neelamani, and they each have names like Jalp, Avajalp, and they're all divine states of Radharani's ecstasy. So, of course, Radha could be revealing these blissful states of her own consciousness at any time, even in a normal conversation. She could be going between these different blissful states. Now, in this Brahmar Geet, a bumblebee comes, and it's only 10 shloks in the Bhagavatam. So the bumblebee comes, and Radha starts talking to the bumblebee because it reminded her of Krishna. And Krishna has gone to Mathura. So she's talking to this bumblebee about Krishna, and she says 10 things. It's 10 shloks, and each one of those shloks is representing one of those states of Divyonmad. So it's a very deep part of the Bhagavatam. Only a Rasik Mahapurush can actually understand. I'm just repeating what I've been told, but it's not like we can actually understand those states, but we could experience it to some degree through Maharaj's Prem Ras Madira pads about Radharani. He's imbued all of that ras in there. So to some extent we can experience it. Yes.
Radhe Radhe Bhaiya. On the last question, I just want to, the answer of the last question you gave, like doing wife chanting Krishna's name after husband passing away will give peace. I think each soul has to do their own devotion. Like, right, we normally do if someone passes away, we chant Krishna's name. But does it affect other person, or is it remove your attachment from that person and it attaches your mind more to Krishna?
Oh, of course, it's more for you. Just like even the performance of Shraddh is more beneficial for the people who are doing it. Because as part of Shraddh, you're doing puja, you're doing kirtan, your mind is in, at least even if the person doesn't completely understand the philosophy, at least they're doing something religious, their mind is somewhat going to be in God. That will help them process the change that they're going through at the very least. But as far as kirtan, yes, if, let's say in the situation that the soul is in the spirit world, then they wouldn't receive any progress of you doing kirtan on their behalf, but they would receive some relief. Any other questions? Yes, one more here.
Well, yeah, I think right now might be the most distant I felt from Radha Krishna and Maharaj Ji. But I was thinking about like when I grow up, right, does it get any easier? So right now, is it that I'm just like really distracted by so many things because I'm a teenager, or is it going to be like this for the rest of my life?
So it could just be sanskar, or it could be, as you say, the situation of being a teenager. Certainly Maharaji himself has acknowledged that that's the most difficult time in a person's life, to keep their mind in God. So Maharaji says, just, do your best to keep your mind in God. Don't stress about it, because once you pass through those years, it does get a lot easier. Your mind will be less distracted, definitely. But it could also just be a sanskar. Some sanskars last a matter of hours, some last months. So just get through it with Maharaji's grace. Hold on to him. Don't worry. Just know that better times will come. Yeah, don't take it too seriously. Of course, we want to take devotion seriously. But when a bad day comes, you say, yeah, it's a bad day. I've survived worse. I can survive this. Good days will come. All right, so, yes, last question.
Yeah, sometime back you said, like, soul is beyond the subtle body or the current Shree. So can we say that the soul has only the attributes of God and nothing outside of that? And if so, like, if we are thinking or doing anything outside of that, we're actually moving away from our true nature of our soul.
Yes.
So our whole effort is to be coming close to our true soul by becoming or trying to be like something which has the godly attributes.
That's right. Absolutely.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
We'll finish with a few minutes of kirtan before the arti. Radhe Radhe Govinda, Radhe Radhe Govinda,
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 Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Radhe Radhe Govinda,
Radhe
राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा 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 राधे राधे गोविंदा
ओ राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा
ओ राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा
राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा राधे 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 राधे गोविंदा
ओ राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा
राधे राधे गोविंदा
ओ राधे राधे गोविंदा राधे राधे गोविंदा
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 बोलो श्यामा श्याम की Just one announcement from my side before the official announcements. The sadhana shivir will resume at 2:30. That means here in the hall we'll be having sadhana, and kids have the option of joining the music electives. If you want to be in the harmonium class, go to the new Shiksha building right opposite this entrance, the new blue building across the lawn. That's where the harmonium classes will be held. The Dholak classes will be in the Lotus Hall. So below the lower dining hall is the Lotus Hall. All Dholak players can meet over there at 2:30. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Welcome.